Welcome back to Dark Horror Stories. In today's episode, I'm sharing 7 true disturbing stories from truck drivers. These are tales of people who ventured into empty interstates, forgotten county roads, and midnight way stations and found something they were never meant to see. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Story 1. The stretch of I-90 I'm talking about is all sky and nothing else. You get these long, flat miles where the horizon looks like it's been erased and redrawn too far away. The kind of dark where your headlights don't so much light the road as carve a narrow hallway through it. I used to like that part, felt honest. No billboards, no tourist traps, just wind and asphalt and that steady diesel hum that turns your thoughts into mush. I'd been running a refrigerated load, frozen chicken, I think, or fish. Honestly, it all blurs together now. I remember the trailer temp readout kept flickering between numbers like it couldn't commit. And I had this coffee in the cup holder that tasted like burnt plastic because I'd microwaved it at a Love's that smelled like fryer grease and cheap cinnamon. I'd also been chewing the same stale peppermint gum for like 2 hours because it kept me awake and because I didn't want to stop again. I wasn't out there for adventure, it was just work. Dispatch had squeezed me, tight window, stupid delivery appointment, the kind where you're either early and they ignore you or late and they punish you. So I pushed into the night even though my eyes had that sandpaper feeling. Somewhere past the last decent cluster of lights, I started noticing a flicker on the right shoulder. Not a vehicle, not a hazard light. It was more like when you pass a reflective sign and your beam hits it just right. Except there was no sign. Just a pulse, low to the ground, like something turning its head. I told myself it was a deer. You see enough Aishin out there and your brain starts sorting shapes automatically. Deer, coyote, plastic bag, shadow. Then I saw it again, same pulse, same height, same distance off the shoulder, like it was pacing me. I did the thing every driver does, checked my mirrors like they were going to tell me the truth. Left mirror, empty lane, blackness. Right mirror, the white edge line sliding by like a ribbon. Trailer lights solid. No cars behind me, nothing. The weird part wasn't the flicker. The weird part was that my speed didn't matter. I eased off the throttle, dropped 5 miles an hour. The flicker slowed. I rolled back into it, climbed a little. The flicker quickened. It stayed even with my cab just out there where the ditch began. At some point, this is the part that makes me feel stupid now, I got annoyed. Like offended at being spooked by a trick of light. I reached down and turned off the radio because the static between stations was getting on my nerves, and I cracked the window a couple inches. Cold air slapped me awake, and with it came a sound I couldn't place at first. A wet, deliberate footstep. Not on gravel, not in grass, on something hard, like pavement, like it was walking right on the shoulder, just out of sight. I remember my hand tightening on the wheel until my knuckles started aching. And I did what you do when you don't want to admit you're scared. I made rules. Okay, I thought if it's an animal, it'll peel off. If it's a person, I'll see them. If it's nothing, it'll stop when I pass the next mile marker. The next mile marker came and went, and the steps stayed level with me. I shut the window. Then I opened it again because I thought maybe the sound was coming from my own rig, something loose, something dragging. So I leaned a little toward the passenger side, trying to listen better. That's when the smell hit. Not dead animal, not skunk, something like damp pennies and old mushrooms, like the inside of a root cellar after rain. My throat tightened, I swallowed, and it didn't help. I tried to laugh at myself, I actually did. One short, fake little chuckle. Then right under that laugh came a voice, my voice, not through the radio, not through a phone. Outside the cab, perfectly paced with the footfalls, saying my name the way I say it when I'm leaving a voicemail. Evan, hey, Evan. It was casual, like it expected me to answer. I don't know why, but the normalness of it made my scalp prickle. I didn't answer, couldn't. My tongue felt thick, like I'd bitten it. I told myself it had to be a trick. Wind may be carrying some other driver's CB, but I didn't have my CB on. Nobody did anymore. And the voice was so close it felt like it was leaning into the glass. "Evan," it said again, and this time it added, "Pull over, you're dragging something." I glanced down, fast, at my gauges. Everything normal, air pressure good, temp still flickering, but it always did that. I checked the mirrors again, more frantic now, and in the right mirror for just a second my trailer lights went alone. There was a second set of lights, small, pale, arranged wrong. Too many points, not in any pattern a vehicle would have. Like someone had stuck a fistful of tiny flashlights into a sack and was swinging it. Then those lights moved upward, rising past the level of the trailer, impossible unless it was climbing the air. My brain refused it. It just refused. It tried to turn it into something else. I hit my brights. The shoulder lit up in a clean white sweep, and for a fraction of a second I saw what the flicker was coming from. It was a face pressed against the darkness, like the dark was a window, not the road off the road. In that strip where your light hits and then dies, the face was long, waxy, and it was smiling in a way that didn't change the rest of it. No cheek movement, just the mouth stretching wider as if someone had taken soft clay and pulled it. The eyes weren't reflective, they were just holes, not black eyes, actual hollows like something had scooped them out and left the sockets open to the night. And this is the part people always ask about, like it's the detail that proves I'm lying. The thing had a seatbelt on, not wrapped around it like debris, worn correctly, crossing its chest, buckled at the hip, like it was riding in a car you couldn't see, matching my speed in the ditch. I blinked and the light moved on and it was gone, swallowed by the next section of dark. I don't remember deciding to speed up, but the tack climbed. My hands did it on their own. I pushed that truck harder than I should have with a refrigerated load, and the trailer started doing that slight sway you feel in your spine before you feel it in the steering. The voice outside laughed. It was still my voice, but it had an extra breath in it, like something was learning the rhythm of speech by copying. "Evan," it said, and now it sounded pleased. "You heard me." The footsteps sped up. Wet slaps on pavement, right along my passenger side, keeping pace like it had all the stamina in the world. I was looking for anything, an exit, a rest area, lights, another vehicle. The road signs were just green rectangles sliding toward me and away again. I saw one for a rest stop in 12 miles and nearly cried from relief. Then my dash lights dimmed, not like a power failure, like someone was turning a knob. The glow faded until my gauges were just ghosts. The headlights stayed on, but the world ahead tightened into a narrower and narrower cone. I told myself alternator, battery, something electrical. But then my phone, plugged into the charger, lit up by itself, screen bright in the dark cab. It opened my camera. I didn't touch it. I swear I didn't. And the camera wasn't showing my face. It was aimed out the passenger window, like it wanted me to look. On the screen, in crisp night mode clarity, I saw the ditch that my eyes couldn't resolve. I saw tall grass bending away from something moving through it, and I saw that long waxy face again, now closer, close enough to see texture. Its skin wasn't skin. It was layered like damp paper pressed together. And there were little seams at the edges of its mouth, like a mask that had been stitched but was coming undone. The iconic moment, the one that keeps coming back when I'm trying to fall asleep, is what happened next. On my phone screen, the thing's hand, too long, fingers jointed wrong, reached up and tapped the glass of my passenger window from the outside. Tap, 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 like it was testing thickness. And my passenger window tapped back from the inside, 3 taps answering it right beside my knee. I jerked my leg away so fast I banged it on the steering column. I looked down, expecting I don't know what. A spider. A loose wire, anything, nothing, just my own cab, my own trash, wrappers, a half-empty bottle of windshield washer fluid rolling slightly with the sway, a crumpled receipt I'd been meaning to throw away. Tap, tap, tap again from the inside. The outside footsteps stopped. The voice outside stopped too, like it was listening. Then my own voice inside the cab now somehow whispered my name from the passenger seat, not loud, not dramatic, like someone leaning close so only you could hear. "Evan." I didn't look right away. I couldn't. I kept my eyes on the road and I gripped the wheel and I told myself over and over, you're tired, you're hallucinating, you're hearing the air vents, you're hearing the fridge unit, you're hearing your own thoughts. But my passenger seatbelt, hanging normally, began to slide. The strap crept through the loop in slow inches as if an invisible shoulder was pulling it across. I hit the rest stop exit like I was aiming for it. I didn't brake gently. I didn't care. The ramp curved and my trailer groaned and the tires whined, and I expected the rig to tip, honestly. The rest stop was lit, fluorescent, ugly, comforting. 2 cars, one other semi parked way at the far end, driver probably asleep. The moment I hit that pool of light, the cab went normal, the dash lights brightened, the phone went black, the smell vanished so quickly it made my head spin. I pulled into a spot, set the brake, and just sat there shaking so hard my teeth clicked. Not sobbing, not screaming, just that stupid full-body tremor you get when your body finally admits it thought it was going to die. After a few minutes, maybe 10, maybe 20, I got out. I did a full walk around like I was supposed to, like this was just a routine stop. I checked my tires, I checked my doors, I checked the seals. Everything looked fine. But when I got to the passenger side, I saw something that made my stomach drop in a clean, heavy way. There were 3 fingerprints on the outside of my passenger window, not smudges, not greasy handprints, indented prints like the glass had softened and held the shape. 3 long ovals pressed into it, slightly too far apart to be human fingers, and right beside them on the inside of the glass, 3 matching impressions, like something had pressed from both sides at once, meeting in the middle. I tried rubbing them out with my sleeve. Nothing. I scraped with a key. Nothing. The glass was smooth, but the shapes were there when the light hit at an angle. That's the aftermath proof I can't talk myself out of, even on good days. I ended up sleeping in that rest stop with every interior light on and my seat pushed back so I could see both mirrors. In the morning, the fingerprints were gone. The glass looked normal, like it had never happened, but my passenger seat belt was buckled. I don't buckle my passenger seat belt. I never have. I don't even know why I looked at it, but it was clicked into place, tight across the empty seat, like someone had just gotten comfortable. I drove the rest of that route in daylight, and I still felt like something was keeping pace in the ditch, just out of sight, waiting for night to make it brave again. Story 2. There's a kind of fog you only get around old river bottoms in late fall. It isn't the cute, spooky kind you see in movies. It's dirty-looking, low and thick, like breath that doesn't want to leave the ground. It clings to your steps when you walk. It makes yard lights look like they're underwater. And if you're driving a box truck through it at 2 a.m., it does something to your sense of distance that feels personal, like the world is leaning in close to mess with you. I'd taken a last-minute run for a buddy who owed me. Furniture delivery, small-town route, nothing heavy. My hand still smelled like that lemony hand cleaner from the warehouse, and I had one of those gas station egg sandwiches sitting in the cup holder because I kept telling myself I'd eat it in a minute. The cab had this faint odor of wet cardboard. I also remember my right turn signal clicking a little too fast, like a bulb was going. I was cutting across a county road that wasn't on my usual routes. My GPS kept rerouting, making that annoyed little chime like I was disappointing it. At some point it told me to turn onto a road that didn't look like a road, more like a long driveway that forgot where it was supposed to end. I should have kept going, I know that now, but the map insisted and I was tired and I thought it's probably just one of those shortcuts locals use. The trees closed in almost immediately. Not big pines, thin hardwoods with branches like knuckles. The fog got denser under them. My headlights turned it into a solid wall, and the road narrowed until my mirrors felt too wide for it. Then I saw the first mailbox. It was nailed to a tree, not a post, and it had no number, just a name carved into it, Willow. I remember thinking that was kind of pretty in a creepy way. People name their properties out there like it makes the isolation feel intentional. A quarter-mile later, another mailbox, another tree, another carved name, Willow. Same carving style, same depth, like the same hand did it. I told myself it was a family, big property, multiple driveways, makes sense. Then another, Willow, and another. Every one of them nailed to a tree at shoulder height, each one empty, doors hanging open like mouths. My skin started doing that prickly thing it does when you realize you've been alone for too long. I rolled my window down a crack to get a clearer look, stupid habit, and the air smelled like river mud and something sweet, almost like overripe pears. The GPS went silent. No recalculating, no blue line, just blank. I tapped the screen, nothing. That's when my headlights caught movement ahead. A person standing in the road, dead center, facing me. I slowed hard. My tires crunched gravel. I leaned forward, squinting into the fog. It was a woman, or shaped like one, barefoot, wearing what looked like a nightgown, thin fabric hanging damp. Her hair was long and stuck to her neck in wet ropes. I don't know why I assumed woman. It was the posture, I guess, the outline. I did the rational thing first. I reached for my phone to call 911. Then I stopped because honestly, you don't call 911 for a drunk person on a back road. Not at first, not when you're thinking you might be overreacting. So I hit my horn, one short blast. She didn't flinch. I rolled down my window more and called out, "Ma'am, you okay?" Her head tilted, slow, and she answered in my mother's voice. Not help me, not please, just my name, Julian, the way she says it when she's half asleep and checking if I made it home. I froze with my hand still on the window crank. My mom lives 3 states away. She doesn't know this road exists. I told myself it was coincidence. People have similar voices. Fog makes sound weird. I was tired, but then the figure took a step toward me, and the fog around her moved like it was attached to her, like the air was following. I put the truck in reverse. Just a gentle roll, keeping distance. She kept walking. Calm, bare feet on gravel, no reaction, no stumble. "Julian," she said again in that same soft, sleepy voice, "don't leave me out here." The iconic moment in this one, the thing that still makes my mouth go dry, is when she lifted her hand, palm up, like she was asking me to take it. And in her palm sat a tiny, perfect model of my truck. Same color, same dents on the bumper. Even the little sticker I had on the dash that said, "Stay back 200 feet" was there, printed impossibly small. The miniature truck's headlights were on, 2 pinpricks of light shining up through her skin like lanterns under thin paper. I swear my brain made a sound, like a rubber band snapping. I slammed it into drive and gunned it, not proud of it. If it had been a real person, I would have killed them. That's what I thought even as I did it, this awful flash of guilt. But the truck didn't move the way it should have. The engine revved, the wheels spun, the box truck lurched like it was stuck in syrup, and the woman thing kept approaching, still holding that tiny truck like a toy. I looked down at my pedals like the problem was me. Then I felt a pressure in my chest, the way you do when you're in a room with bad air. The truck's interior lights flickered. The radio off turned on by itself, spitting out a low, wet static that sounded like someone breathing into a microphone. In that static, I heard my mother humming, the lullaby she used when I was sick as a kid. I hadn't thought about that in years. It shouldn't have been in my head, and it definitely shouldn't have been in the speakers. I shouted something, don't ask me what, just noise. And then the truck moved, not forward, sideways, like the road was a conveyor belt and my truck was a box being slid off it. The steering wheel fought me, turning on its own until my front end drifted toward the trees. I stomped the brake and the truck stopped so abruptly my sandwich flew and hit the windshield, egg and grease splattering like a dumb insult. The fog thickened. My headlights turned into 2 dim circles. I couldn't see the woman anymore, but I could hear her bare feet on gravel, close, right by my door. I locked the doors so fast I almost snapped the switch. Then something scratched at the driver's side window very gently like a fingernail testing paint. And in my mother's voice it said, "Let me in." "I'm cold." I stayed frozen. I didn't answer. I didn't move. I stared at the fog and tried to breathe without letting it know I was there. That's what it felt like it was listening for the sound of me being alive. Minutes passed, or seconds, I can't tell you. At some point the scratching stopped. The fog thinned just enough for me to see the road again, and when it did, the trees were different. The mailboxes were gone. The road was wider. My GPS pinged back to life like it had just been asleep. I didn't waste time questioning it. I drove until I hit a main highway and a lit gas station with a real person behind the counter. I walked in shaking and bought a bottle of water I didn't need and a pack of beef jerky I didn't want because I needed my hands to do something normal. The clerk asked if I was okay and I told him I was just tired. Back in the truck, I found the aftermath proof. On my dashboard, right above the vents, was a tiny wet footprint. Bare, child-sized, perfect heel and toes, like someone had stood there with a soaked foot and stepped down gently. It dried into a dark stain and it never fully came out, no matter how much I scrubbed it. Even after I sold that truck, I sometimes imagine the new owner seeing it and feeling that brief, confused discomfort and not knowing why. Story 3. A lot of people think truck stops are noisy, bright places where nothing weird can really happen. Like the fluorescent lights and the beef jerky walls keep the dark out. But some of the loneliest moments I've ever had were in those parking lots at 3 a.m. when the diesel engines idle like 100 sleeping animals and the whole world feels paused except for the occasional hiss of air brakes. This was down in the desert, New Mexico maybe, or West Texas. I'm hazy on which. I just remember the air had that mineral smell, like hot rocks even at night. I'd parked on the far edge because I didn't feel like squeezing between two reefers. My bunk was a mess, laundry piled up, a paperback with the cover torn off, a cheap little fan rattling against the dash because one of its suction cups was failing. I just brushed my teeth with bottled water because the restroom line was too long, and my toothpaste was that weird cinnamon kind that always tastes like gum disease. I remember that because it made me nauseous, and I lay there with my mouth tasting like fake fire while the truck rocked slightly in the wind. I was half asleep when someone knocked on my door. Not a bang, not aggressive. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. I didn't move. You don't open your door at night. That's just rule 1. I told myself it was a cop doing a check or another driver needing a jump. But if it was either of those, they'd use a flashlight, they'd say something. They wouldn't just tap like they were asking permission. 3 taps again, then a voice, "Sir, you dropped this." Male voice, calm, right outside my window. I stayed still and listened. I could hear the distant whoosh of cars on the highway. I could hear my own engine ticking as it cooled. I could hear something else too. A soft rasping sound like a zipper being pulled slowly over and over. I finally sat up enough to peek through the curtain without opening it. There was a person standing by my door, but the light from the truck stop didn't sit on him right. It kind of slid off, like he wasn't fully in the same brightness as the rest of the lot. He held something up toward my window. My logbook, the exact black notebook I'd lost a week earlier. I'd torn my cab apart looking for it, swore I'd left it at a dock in Flagstaff. I'd already bought a new one and rewritten everything from memory, cussing the whole time. He held it like he was offering it back. I told myself someone found it and recognized me from paperwork. That's plausible. Drivers leave stuff everywhere. But then he tapped the cover with one finger and said, "You wrote about me." My stomach tightened. Because I didn't write about people in my logbook. I wrote miles, fuel notes like tire pressure low or dock guy rude, normal stuff. I didn't answer, I just watched. He took a step closer and the zipper rasp sound got louder like something being pulled open. His face was mostly shadow, but his mouth was visible. It was smiling, and the smile looked strained like it was being held in place by effort. He lifted his other hand, empty, and made a little twisting motion like turning a key in a lock. Inside my cab, my seatbelt clicked, then the passenger seatbelt, then the bunk strap I never use. Click, 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 all by themselves like the truck was buckling itself in. I felt my hands go clammy. I reached for my keys even though they were already in the ignition, and I told myself, you're going to start it, you're going to pull forward into the light, you're going to laugh at how stupid you're being. I turned the key. The engine didn't catch. It tried. It turned over, but it didn't catch. Outside, the man-thing laughed very quietly as if he'd expected that. That's when I noticed his hands. They were in gloves, work gloves like a dock worker might wear, except the fingers were too long inside them, stretching the fabric into narrow points, like someone had stuffed sticks in the fingertips. He lifted the logbook again and opened it. The pages fluttered in the wind. Then he held it flat like he wanted me to read it. I could see the writing, my handwriting, but not my entries. It was just one line, repeated down every page. I'm in the sleep between blinks, over and over like someone practicing a phrase until it feels natural. My throat went tight. I swallowed and tasted cinnamon toothpaste and fear. I started to think, okay, maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe I'm in that sleep paralysis thing people talk about. Then the curtain moved, not from wind, not from me. A slow tug from the bottom corner, as if a hand behind it was pulling it aside. I whipped around toward the passenger side, and for a second I saw something pressed against the inside of the curtain fabric. An outline of a face pushing from behind like the cloth was thin skin. The iconic moment here. The face had no features except a row of teeth, perfectly human teeth, arranged in a straight line like someone had glued them to the inside of the fabric. The teeth dragged downward as the face slid, leaving little wet trails on the cloth. I made a sound I didn't recognize as mine. I kicked the door with my boot, hard like that would knock whatever was off the curtain. Outside, the man said, "Don't do that, you'll wake them." Them was the word that snapped me into motion. Not because I understood it, because I didn't want to. I grabbed my tire thumper from beside the seat and swung the curtain fully open. Nothing was there, no face, no teeth. Just the passenger seat empty, with the belt buckled tight across it like someone was holding still. The knocking came again, but now it was on the back of the cab. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, like something had walked around behind me. I started the engine again, grinding the starter longer than I should have. This time it caught. It roared to life like it had been holding its breath. I didn't check mirrors. I didn't signal. I just pulled forward, straight into the brightest part of the lot, passing under a light pole so harsh it made everything look bleach white. And the moment I did, the tapping stopped. I looked back toward where I'd been parked. No one, just my empty spot and the shadow of my trailer. I sat there for a long time with my hands on the wheel, heart banging, trying to talk myself into a normal explanation. A prank, a dream, another driver messing with me, the toothpaste making me feel sick. Then I noticed the logbook. It was on my passenger seat, dry, clean, open to the middle. And on the open page, in my handwriting, was a fresh entry I hadn't written. "Stop blinking so long. That's the proof I can't shake. Because even if you tell me I imagine the man, imagine the teeth, imagine the belts buckling themselves, I can't explain how a missing notebook came back with ink that matched my pen and pressure that matched my hand. To this day, when I'm tired on the road and my eyes start doing that slow, heavy blink, I get this spike of panic, not because I think I'll crash, because I'm afraid something will notice the gap. Story 4. The mountains in late winter look clean from a distance, like the cold scrubbed them. But when you're actually in them, when you're winding a loaded rig through those passes, you realize how messy they are. Slush, sand, black ice, fallen branches, that gritty salt spray that cakes your mirrors until everything looks smeared. It's the kind of drive that makes you talk to yourself just to stay sharp. I was hauling lumber, southbound, and I'd taken a detour because there'd been an accident up ahead. My route put me on this 2-lane road that dipped through a long valley with no cell signal. The kind of place where the trees stand close and quiet, and even your own engine sounds like it's being swallowed. I'd been snacking on sunflower seeds, spitting shells into an old water bottle because I'm disgusting like that. I also had my heater blasting at my feet while the rest of the cab stayed cold, which always makes me feel carsick. And my wipers kept squeaking because I was overdue for new blades. It started with the signs, 3 in a row nailed to trees on the right side, not official road signs, hand-painted boards, no stopping, no turning around, keep moving. I laughed, actually. Not because it was funny, but because it felt like something a bored local kid would do. People mess with drivers for sport sometimes. Drop pallets in the road, shine lasers, stupid stuff. Then I rounded a bend and saw a pickup truck parked crooked in the snowbank, hazards on, hood up. Classic. A man stood beside it, waving one arm slow and high like he wanted me to stop. I told myself, stranded motorist, cold, needs help. But then I noticed his other arm. He was waving with one hand. With the other, he held a deer head by the antlers, not a whole deer, just the head, freshly cut, blood dark against the snow. He held it up like a sign, like he wanted me to see. I didn't stop. I slowed, but I didn't stop. I cracked my window and called, "You all right?" He turned his face toward me, and his face looked wrong in a small way that my brain couldn't name at first. Like the proportions were almost human, but not quite. His eyes were set too far apart. His mouth was too small, like it belonged to a child's face scaled up. He said something. I couldn't hear it over my engine, so I leaned closer like an idiot, and I heard it clearly, in my own voice. "Stop, come look. It's beautiful." I jerked back. My heart did that stupid jump where it feels like it's trying to crawl up your throat. I told myself, echo, wind, my own hearing playing tricks, but then I passed him, and in my mirror I saw him sprint, not after my truck, alongside it on the snow, keeping pace, carrying that deer head like it weighed nothing. His legs moved too fast for the distance he covered, like his steps were skipping frames. I hit the gas. The road dipped into the valley and the trees got thicker. My mirrors were just gray walls of forest sliding by. The pickup and the man disappeared behind the curve. I tried to calm down by counting mile markers. I tried to focus on the rhythm of my tires. Then my CB crackled. I don't use my CB. It was there, but I hadn't turned it on in months. Through the static came my wife's voice, not saying my name, not calling for help, just talking the way she does when she's in the kitchen and doesn't realize I can hear her. Soft, casual, intimate. "I made you something," she said. "Pull over and I'll bring it to you." My stomach dropped, because that voice shouldn't have been anywhere near this valley. Then ahead I saw something hanging from the trees. At first I thought it was roadkill or trash, like those strips of plastic people tie to mark trails. Then I got closer and realized it was a line of seat belts, dozens of them hung between the trees like bunting. Gray straps, frayed ends, buckles clinking in the wind, and every buckle was clicked shut. No cars, no wreckage, just seatbelts strung up like decorations. That was the iconic moment for me, the absurdity of it, the way it made my brain itch. Like the valley had a theme. I started to think I understood it, like maybe there was some local wreck, some memorial, some explanation that would make it all settle. And then I realized I didn't understand anything at all because the straps began to tighten. Not in the wind, not swaying, tightening like a muscle flexing. They pulled upward, lifting off the branches they hung from, rising into the air as if something invisible was gathering them. I hit my brakes hard enough to feel the load shift. The straps rose higher, then snapped taut across the road in front of me, blocking the lane like a net. I swore and tried to steer around them, but the trees were too close and the ditch too deep. If I went off, I'd jackknife. So I did the only thing I could think of. I stopped. The moment my wheels stopped moving, the temperature in the cab dropped. My breath fogged the windshield, and the voice on the CB, my wife's voice, laughed, just one short laugh like she'd been waiting. Outside, I heard footsteps on snow approaching from behind. I didn't open my door. I didn't even reach for it. I just locked it again, even though it was already locked, because that's what you do when you're desperate for a ritual. The footsteps came up alongside my driver door and stopped. Then came the soft scrape of something being dragged. I glanced in my side mirror. The man from the pickup was there, but he wasn't holding the deer head anymore. He was holding a seatbelt, fresh, clean, and he was dragging the metal buckle along my door like a key, leaving a thin, bright line in the paint. He looked up at my window and smiled that too small smile. Then his jaw unhinged, not like a snake, not like a movie, like a hinge on a toolbox. Down and open, perfectly rectangular, showing the inside of his mouth as a flat, pale cavity. No tongue, no throat, just a space like he was hollow. From that hollow came my voice again, calm as anything. "Now you're parked." I didn't think, I just floored it. The seatbelt net in front of me snapped as my bumper hit it, buckles clanging like wind chimes against steel. The straps stretched and then tore, whipping over my hood. Something slapped the windshield hard, like a body. I didn't look up. I kept driving, dragging straps and buckles beneath my tires until they finally snapped free and I was clear. I didn't stop again until I reached a town with streetlights and plowed roads and people who looked normal in a way that made my knees weak. At the first safe parking lot, I got out and checked my rig. The aftermath proof was on my driver's side door, a single, perfectly straight scratch, shiny down to bare metal at about buckle height. But what made me feel sick wasn't the scratch. It was the buckle mark, an imprint stamped into the paint beside it, like someone had pressed the shape of a seatbelt buckle into the door with enormous force. No dent, no impact, just the pattern. Sometimes I run my finger over it in my head, the way you touch a scar you didn't earn. Story 5. There's this abandoned way station on a back highway in the Midwest. At least I think it's abandoned. It looks abandoned. Signs faded, booths dark, parking lot cracked with weeds coming through like green veins. But every time I've passed it at night, there's been one light on, just one. A sickly yellow glow behind the glass like someone left a lamp burning and forgot to come back. I used to joke about it with my brother, like that's where they keep the ghosts of overweight loads. Dumb stuff. This particular night I was running empty, trying to get home faster. No trailer, just the tractor. That makes the ride bounce more and it makes the road noise louder. I'd also been eating those sour gummy worms, the kind that makes the inside of your cheeks feel raw. I remember my tongue stung from it. The sky was low and overcast, no moon. The road was so dark my headlights felt weak. I passed the way station and saw the one light like always. Then the sign above the entrance flickered on. Way in, I hadn't seen it lit in years. I told myself it was a power surge. Maybe they'd reactivated it. Maybe a worker was inside. But as I drove past, the lit sign changed again. It displayed my truck number, not my plate, my internal fleet number, the one painted small on the side of the cab. My mouth went dry. I checked my speed. I wasn't even doing anything illegal. I wasn't hauling. I wasn't overweight. I was anything, and still the sign wanted me. I kept driving. In my mirror, I saw headlights behind me, a vehicle coming up fast, weaving slightly. At first I was relieved, another human presence. A state trooper, maybe, coming to flag me down if the station really was active. The headlights got close enough to fill my mirror, but there was no vehicle body around them, just two lights hovering at bumper height, jittering like excited eyes. They followed me for a mile, 2 miles, always just behind, always the same distance like they were tethered. Then they flashed, not like high beams, like a blink, and in that instant the lights were closer, right up on my bumper. I accelerated. They stayed. I slowed. They stayed. I told myself, motorcycle with a broken fairing, or a car with fog making it look weird. Then I reached a stretch where the road bent and I had a clear view behind. There was no vehicle, just two lights bobbing low, keeping perfect line with the center of my lane, like something running on all fours with headlights for eyes. I tried not to look. That sounds ridiculous, but that's what my brain did. It tried to survive by refusing. Up ahead, the road sign indicated the next exit was 5 miles. No services. Then the way station appeared again, not on the side of the highway, this time straight ahead, spanning the road like a toll plaza. Same cracked lot, same booths, same one light. That's when my fear turned into something else, confusion so sharp it felt like nausea. I told myself I'd missed a turn or I'd looped somehow, but there was no way. The road had been straight. The sign flickered on again, way in, and beneath it in blocky digital letters, "Your light." That made no sense. Empty rigs are light by definition. I tried to drive past it. As my cab crossed the shadow of the way station, my engine bobbed down like I'd hit mud. The RPM dropped, the steering got heavy, and from the booth window, the one lit window, I saw movement. A person sitting inside, hunched over a desk. I could just make out their shape in that yellow light. They lifted their head, and their face wasn't in the window, not lined up with it. It was pressed against it from the inside, like they were too close, like they'd been waiting inches from the glass. The iconic moment, their cheeks and forehead were flattened against the pane so hard I could see the skin spread, and their eyes, wide, desperate, rolled in different directions, trying to track me as I passed. Their mouth opened against the glass and fogged it from the inside. I couldn't hear words, but I could read the shape of it. "More!" I punched the accelerator. The engine stuttered, then caught, and I surged out of the way station shadow like I'd broken free of something sticky. The two lights behind me vanished the moment I cleared it, like they couldn't cross that boundary. I kept driving until I hit a rest area and parked under a floodlight, hands shaking on the wheel. The aftermath proof came when I got out and walked around the cab. Someone had stuck a way station sticker on my driver door. You know those little inspection decals? It looked like one of those, except it wasn't any state I recognized. It just said, "Approved 0 LBS," and underneath a thumbprint in black ink. The thumbprint wasn't mine. The ridge pattern was wrong. Too many lines, too tight like a tree's rings instead of skin. I peeled it off and threw it away, and I still regret that. I don't know what I thought I was protecting myself from by not keeping it. Story 6. I used to run a lot of night routes through the Pacific Northwest. People romanticize those roads, misty evergreens, rain on the windshield, little diners with pie. The truth is, it can feel like driving through a wet mouth. Everything slick, everything quiet, and the woods so thick you start to feel like you're inside something alive. This was one of those nights where rain wasn't falling so much as hovering. My wipers were on low, making that steady shush-shush. The defroster smelled faintly like dust burning. I had a cheap hoodie pulled up because the cab felt damp, and my left sock was wet because I'd stepped in a puddle at the dock and never changed it. I was hauling pallets of bottled water, ironic, I guess, up a two-lane highway where the shoulders drop off into black fir forest. Around 1 a.m. I saw a hitchhiker. I know you don't pick them up. I didn't intend to, but something about him made my foot ease off the gas before my brain decided anything. He stood on the shoulder under a flickering reflector post, rain beating on his jacket. Tall, thin, hood up. He didn't wave. He just faced the road like he was waiting for a bus. As I approached, he turned his head slightly, and I saw his profile in my headlights. His nose and chin were smudged, like someone had tried to erase them. The face had the general shape of a face, but the features were shallow, unfinished, like wet clay before details. I told myself rain distortion, dirty windshield, my own tired eyes. I drove past. In my mirror, he was still there watching. A mile later, I saw him again. Same posture, same spot relative to the road, same flickering reflector post. That's impossible. I hadn't turned around. I told myself, another hitchhiker, similar jacket, the woods playing tricks. I drove past again faster. 2 miles later, there he was again. Same. That's when my hands started sweating, because it felt like the road itself was repeating like a skipped record. Then my GPS spoke, not in its normal voice, in mine. "Take the next turnout." I stared at the screen. The map showed a turnout ahead that I'd never seen marked before, just a blank gray patch labeled in plain text, "Safe place." The hair on my arms rose under my hoodie. I told myself, glitch, someone hacked it. The unit was failing. I ignored it. The rain intensified. The road narrowed. The trees seemed to tilt inward, their branches arching over like ribs. Then my headlights caught something in the lane. A person lying across the road, face down. I hit the brakes hard. The truck fishtailed slightly, just enough to make my stomach flip. I stopped with my bumper a few feet from the body. I sat there breathing hard, staring, because it wasn't a body. It was clothing arranged like a body. Jacket, pants, boots, all stuffed with wet leaves. A scarecrow version of a person laid out carefully in my lane. And the hood, this is the iconic moment, was turned inside out, and on the inside lining someone had sewn a row of eyelashes. Real ones stuck into the fabric like black grass. Hundreds of them. I gagged. I don't know why that detail hit me so hard, but it did, like the clothing was trying to learn what a face looks like. Behind me in the mirror, I saw the hitchhiker again, not on the shoulder. In the road behind my trailer, standing perfectly still, rain sliding off him. He lifted his hand slowly and pointed at my cab. Then the door handle on my passenger side moved. It jiggled gently like someone testing if it was locked. I didn't wait. I didn't get out. I threw the truck into gear and rolled forward, crushing the leaf-stuffed clothes beneath my tires. The eyelashes on the hood smeared across the asphalt like tiny black worms. As I accelerated, my passenger side window fogged from the inside, even though the defroster was on, and a shape pressed into the fog, like someone leaning close. No features, just that unfinished face pushing against the glass from the inside of my cab. I swung my elbow at it on instinct and hit nothing, just cold glass. I drove until the trees thinned and the rain eased, and I didn't stop until dawn. The aftermath proof showed up later when I finally unloaded the water pallets and climbed back into my cab in daylight. My hoodie, hanging on the seat, had a line of wet eyelashes stuck to the inside of the hood. Not mine, not fake. Wet, clumped, real. I threw the hoodie away at the next stop and drove in a t-shirt in cold air because I couldn't stand the thought of putting it back on. Story 7. There's a kind of exhaustion that isn't sleepiness. It's deeper. It's when your body's moving but your mind feels like it's lagging half a second behind. That's the danger zone for truckers, and it's why I hate those long overnight hauls where the schedule makes no sense and the only thing keeping you upright is caffeine and stubbornness. This night was humid, summer, somewhere in the south. The air outside was thick enough that my cab windows stayed slightly hazed even with the AC running. I'd been eating cold canned peaches with a plastic fork because I'd forgotten to restock snacks. The syrup smell mixed with diesel and made my stomach churn. I remember my hands were sticky and I kept wiping them on my jeans like a kid. I was heading toward a small distribution center off a rural highway. The last 10 miles were all darkness and tree line, no houses, no street lights. Then I saw a set of taillights ahead. Relief. Another vehicle, a reference point. I closed the distance slowly. The taillights were strange, too low, too close together, like a small car, but there was no silhouette around them, just 2 red points floating above the road. I told myself, motorcycle, or maybe a car with its rear body panel missing. People drive garbage vehicles out there. As I got closer, the taillights began to drift toward the center line, then back, like the vehicle was swaying. I flashed my brights, just a quick courtesy blink. The taillights blinked back, not like brake lights, like an eye blink. And then in that blink, the taillights were closer, too close. Right in front of me, I slammed the brakes. My load shifted. The seatbelt bit into my shoulder, but there was nothing there, no vehicle, no lights, just empty road. I sat there with my hazard lights on, breathing hard. I told myself micro-sleep, a blink too long. My brain invented taillights. That happens. I started forward again, slower, white-knuckled. A mile later, the taillights reappeared ahead. Same low, close red points. I didn't blink. I stared at them until my eyes watered. They swayed again like they were testing my attention. Then the points rose up, slowly, like whatever they belonged to was standing. They lifted higher than a car's taillight should be, higher than a pickup, until they were at the height of a semi-trailer. My stomach sank. The red points turned slightly, and I realized they weren't taillights. They were glowing skin, two raw, red, wet-looking spots on something's back, like exposed muscle shining through. The thing stepped forward into my headlights just enough for me to see its outline, not tall and pale, not a classic monster. It was shaped like a person wearing an oversized coat, except the coat was its body, loose, draped, hanging in layers that moved like heavy fabric even when there was no wind. Its arms dangled too long, sleeves ending in nothing, no hands, just empty folds. It turned its head and its neck twisted too far, too smoothly, like it didn't have bones. And then it did something that still makes me feel sick to describe. It opened along its spine, like a zipper being pulled down the back of a coat. The layers parted, revealing an inner cavity lined with teeth. Not sharp, not predator teeth, human teeth, set in soft flesh like they'd been pressed in by finger. The iconic moment. From that opening, a small human arm reached out, pale and thin, and waved at me slowly like a child saying hello from inside someone else's jacket. I couldn't breathe. My chest locked up. I tried to tell myself it was a prank, a costume, a weird puppet, but the arm waved with the wrong joints. The elbow bent backward. The fingers flexed in a slow, thoughtful way, like it was trying to remember how waving works. Then it spoke, not in a scary voice, not in a growl. In the tired, flat tone of a GPS, "Hey, RIVD," and my truck's navigation screen lit up by itself, showing my destination, except the pin dropped right where that thing stood in the road. I didn't think. I turned the wheel hard and drove into the gravel shoulder, bouncing so violently my teeth clacked. The trailer rocked. I thought I'd roll it. I didn't care. Branches scraped along my passenger side like fingernails. My mirror clipped something, maybe a sapling, and snapped inward with a crack. I kept going until I burst out onto a dirt service road that ran parallel to the highway. My tires threw mud. The rig lurched and protested like it wanted to die. Behind me, through the trees, I saw those two raw red spots moving, gliding, keeping pace, not through the road but through the forest, as if it didn't have to navigate trunks and brush. My engine sputtered. For one terrifying second, it felt like it might stall. I whispered out loud, "Come on," like the truck was a horse. It caught and surged forward, and the red spots fell behind, swallowed by trees. I drove straight to the distribution center, parked crooked, and sat there with my forehead against the steering wheel until daylight bled into the sky. When I finally got out to inspect the damage, the aftermath proof was on my passenger door, not scratches from branches. Those were there too, sure. But beneath them, carved into the paint in a neat, careful line, was one word: ARRIVD. Like someone had taken their time writing it with a sharp thing while I was bouncing through the woods. I delivered the load. I didn't tell the dock workers why my mirror was broken. I didn't tell anyone. I just went home and slept for 12 hours and woke up with the taste of canned peach syrup still in my mouth, like the night had seeped into me. And sometimes when my GPS voice says "arrived" now, even in broad daylight, I feel my hands tighten on the wheel before I can stop it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let me know in the comments which story unsettled you most, and share this with your friends who love a good scare. Until next time, stay safe out there.